think the environment has to be changed.
What we're saying is have a heart.
We've got to be able to regenerate our
There'll
economy.
be people who are kind, people who are cruel, but that's life. You can be bigoted about pigeons. I'm fine with that.
What's wrong with Singaporeans?
What does it mean for an older person to grow old in Singapore? What are the fears that they face? Janice, maybe you can tell us what are the things that an older person as he ages worries about?
I think as the generation of baby boomers age, this is a generation that's more higher educated, they're more well-to-do, they're more well-traveled, they're more independent. One of the biggest challenges of aging in place and having your own house and shelter is dying in place as well. So the fear of loneliness, isolation, being away from friends and family, having that social support group. Once you leave the corporate sector and once you stop work, you no longer have a network of friends. And sometimes as you age, it's about trying to rebuild these new friendships again. The previous generation lived in a more kampong environment where you knew your neighbors and you knew everybody around you. Increasingly, as society gets more affluent, we no longer know many of our neighbors around us. And as you age, you will find that this is going to become even more prevalent because suddenly you find that I want to know my neighbors, but I don't know them. How do I approach them? And I think that's one of the biggest challenges, loneliness.
Okay, but this can be handled, right? It's a matter of socializing.
I think it can be handled, and one of the initiatives that Aging Asia started as a pilot project is a virtual retirement village. So instead of people moving into a retirement village, the retirement village will come to you. So it's a village without walls where people form friendships and we do activities together.
But isn't this dehumanizing? You're talking of socializing virtually.
A virtual retirement village is a village without walls. The only communication
It's not a computer thing.
It's not a computer thing, but you do register online or you do send out emails online because most people are internet savvy now. But it just means a village without the brick walls. So we're not spending money on building the actual village, but we're spending money on the services, the soft side, the delivery of the support networks and the activities, and for example, medical concierge services. So it's about spending money on the soft skills versus building a whole retirement village up.
Okay. So this would be living in wherever you are, but actually interacting as if you're in a village with all the facilities and services provided.
Yes. So for example, if you have an activity, you have an high tea, let's meet at Goodwood Park Hotel, or we'll meet at one of the community function areas, and we bring the members out of their homes and we would gather together and do the activities together. But it does not necessarily mean that we need to move into a $1 million development in order to access those kind of retirement village services where we bring people together.
Okay.
Things. Loneliness is a big driver for the health problems. Loneliness leads to feeling depressed, withdrawing, not taking care of yourself, and it's a predictor of dying, predictor of having heart problems. So they call it in different ways, the language, they call it as how you perceive others caring about you or not. It's not even if you have family, and the family thinks they're caring about you. Another thing which actually comes up is think of who's getting older. Women. What you actually get is what's called feminization, which means as the population gets older, the people who are living longer happen to be women.
More men die
More
earlier.
men die earlier. So the women actually are the ones who fear the feminization, the process of loneliness. And I think virtual communities, there are many solutions being attempted, but somebody has to initiate it, which really depends on young people initiating it.
I went to do visiting for Project Awareness. What we do distributions of food and stuff. So our main aim is actually to reach out to them. So when we have food and everything on our hands, they open the doors and talk to us and be more welcoming. During visiting, what I actually noticed, that a lot of elderly, they do not really need money. The top of their list of concern is not money. Most of them they are living under the government grant. They tell me that they have enough money, but they are alone. You see, so most of my volunteers or myself, even what we do to help these elderly is actually we visit them, we bring them out, Because elderly, you know, like maybe Janice said, maybe it's my generation, you know, when I get old I can go internet, but for this generation of elderly, they are not that tech savvy. So what we do, we actually have to do the manual outreach to them. We go to their house, tell them, bring them out, and that's what we do. Yeah, so I remembered there was once I actually, because I performed at the Sing Song show, so I brought 100 of elderly to Mediacorp just to see live recording. Yeah, so for that one, they feel, you know, they can make friends and they can actually see something that, you know, they may not even get the chance to see in their life. Yes.
And actually one of the things that you're talking about is really key. The elderly crave actually be company.
When you're a professional, as you say, you have a network, as you get old, you get lost. People don't look at you, they don't, you've got, and I sometimes do that when my mother is concerned. You know, I forget and say, oh, really, you don't know about it. And then I feel, you know, I put her one side, oh, it's not important because you're old. And I find that now I make it a point to tell her, oh, Mom, you know this? And she says, she gives an opinion. I cook, you know, and she gives, oh, that's too much of that. So I give her to taste it. That respect, because I want it.
Of self-worth.
Of self-worth, we put them one side. You see in the papers, the years of experience are not passed on, are not respected. And what are we saying about employing old workers? They have a wealth of experience, and we're giving that up. In SIA, what happened? You retire, so they get new people. My brother was in SIA many years, and as a supervisor, he worked young people, you know, and you find first class and you're getting this kind of service, this kind of shit. People say your standards fall. Why? Because your senior staff have been put on shelf. You're old, you're useless.
Why is it that people treat old people this way? Why do they assume that they don't know?
Because of generation gap. The generation gap is actually quite huge nowadays. I teach a freshman seminar called Generations, and I just feel that every year when I look at the students...
Do they accept what you say?
I feel that the gap is great.
So we accept that young people don't regard and treat old people with, unknowingly, they don't treat them with respect, but it is more that they disregard the usefulness of the old person. Why do they make these assumptions?
I think because you don't have enough connections. But I always tell my students that the society is made up of different generations. And the thing about aging is you're going to be old one day. Yeah. So you are the future. You know, you're looking at the future self. So I always tell my students, you must always think, you know, when you go out to work, you become making policies and so far, you must always think that you have to make good policies for aging society because you're going to use it next time.
So what can be done to convince young people to give more acknowledgement to the usefulness of old people?
Think of our parents. When they were our age, how did they look? If you think about it, what has happened is in the last 20, 30 years, every group, what used to be considered old at 60 is now getting to be 80. Okay, and it's not unusual for an 80-year-old to be working and being as active and young. So I can tell you what happened in the school that we built here. We actually deliberately looked for people very experienced to bring on board because we wanted people who had already done it to come and identify young people and build programs. And we brought several people in who were tremendous. They had the background, they felt young, they had the energy, they had the vision, and they inspired a whole group of young faculty.
But the decision came from you and not from a young person.
Well, it's not just me. It was something we thought about right up front. This is going to be a strategy. Because at the end of the day, when you're building something from scratch, much better to get someone who really knows it and who's done it. But I've got a 70-plus-year-old faculty who looks and talks like a young adult. He thinks like one. He's constantly active, constantly creative, and he inspires young people all around, including my son.
What about people who respect old people because they behave old?
But that's actually part of the problem. Exactly what you're pointing out to. How you interact also is how others are going to interact with you.
What I always tell my volunteers is that, you know, these elderly people, You do not look at them as elderly, but they are the people who actually built what you have today.
You're saying that young people should be grateful and they should therefore talk to old people out of gratitude. It doesn't happen in reality.
No, I mean, it's not just gratitude. Changing your perspective of something, you know, and this is not just an old, useless person, but this is someone who has once helped you in your life. It's not just about kindness, but, you know, for me as the founder of Project Awareness, I hope to promote volunteerism. It's much wider, and it's much more noble than just kindness itself, because kindness, maybe I just smile at you and that's it, but volunteerism is actually going down on the ground and doing things for someone. And from what I hear from all my volunteers is that when they actually go down to the ground, they see it happening, they feel it happening, that it actually drives it very deep into their hearts. That's what I mean.
It's about connections. The Council for Third Age recently started this intergenerational learning program where they bring older people into schools to have programs with the school children, teaching the older people how to use Facebook, how to create Facebook.
Oh, the old people go to the schools to be taught by the school children.
So they have about a class of maybe 20 pairs or 30 pairs, and then they will meet for about 6 sessions or so. So it's not just like, you know, you have those programs that you just go to old folks' home and then dance and sing and then bye-bye, you know, that kind really don't have a lot of connections that you will foster. But if you have programs that you meet regularly, once a week or once in 2 weeks, you do feel that school children realize that, oh, older people is not just older people, but they are people who have a passion, who have an interest, who have stories to tell, who have things and values that they can teach young people.